That's country music superstar Charley Pride, who sang the Star-Spangled Banner in advance of the first regular season game at Globe Life Field in Arlington in July. Passed away Saturday at the age of 86 due to complications from COVID-19. Not only was he a trailblazer in country music, he was among the trailblazers who played in the Negro Leagues in the early 1950s. This is an image of Charley as a Memphis Red Sox player, and that image was tweeted out by our good friend, the curator, president of the Hall of Fame Museum, the Negro League Hall of Fame Museum in Kansas City, Bob Kendrick. Bob, good morning to you. Wish we were visiting with you under happier circumstances, but let's turn this into the celebration of a life that was really influential. Not only was Charley Pride a trailblazer in baseball, but in country music as well. He was a real Renaissance man.
Oh, no question. I mean, how many of us get to fulfill two of our passions? And guys, his first passion was baseball. You know, well before this country music thing took hold, his dream was to play professional baseball. And when Jackie Robinson breaks the color barrier, this is no longer a pipe dream. And of course, it would take him from small town Mississippi into the Negro Leagues with that dream of someday moving into Major League Baseball. And as you both know, he did make it into the New York Yankees organization before he hurt his arm. And it was after he hurt his arm that he fell back on a pioneering country western music career some 70+ million albums sold later. As I always share with my visitors at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, we should all have a fallback career like Charley Pride.
You're not lying. You're not lying. Bob, great to see you, man.
It's good to see you, H.R.
Always. Thanks for joining us. Again, another guy, I was so fortunate to be in the big leagues at the time that I was, because Charley was around the Rangers quite a bit. I got a chance to spend a lot of time with him in Texas when I'd go through. And I remember asking him, how did a brother get into country music? And he talked about playing all the time, and it's just what he grew up with. Can you expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, you know, honestly, Harold, I think Charley could have sang anything. He had an amazing voice, but he found his niche in country music. And of course, he would sit in the back of the bus on occasions and pick his guitar and sing and drive the guys crazy, because you got to remember, the Negro Leagues were a jazz era. And here he was singing with this twang. And I don't know if the guys were oftentimes feeling what he was singing.
No, they was like, Charley, shut up with that stuff, man.
And
what
he
you
became
doing?
This groundbreaker, this pioneer. And you got to remember, when he breaks into the industry, they would not put his picture on his album cover, because the fear was that the country music world was not ready for a black man singing country music. And it was only after he started to build his fan base did they actually spring it on him that this was a brother singing country music. But by that time, that fan base had swelled, and all of a sudden, it didn't matter what color Charley Pride was to those who loved great music, and they adored him, and he created a legion of fans worldwide.
Well, he was the first black entertainer in the Grand Ole Opry to perform there. And, you know, the country legend, music legend is known worldwide. But back to the baseball, he was a pitcher, but he also thought he could hit a little bit, too. He'd take batting practice with all the time, and left-handed hitter, and we're like, Charley, you can't hit the ball, man. But he's like, I can strike you out, though. He was a heck of a person to be around and just spending time with.
It's just a joy. Just an absolute joy. But you know what, Harold? I think I've said that about virtually every Negro Leagues player I've ever met. Their spirit, the personality, the charisma. You just always felt good around them, and Charley was one of those guys. And you know, every pitcher thinks they can hit. You know, they all think they can hit. And Charley was no exception, and he always liked to tell you about it. But he was a good little crafty left-handed pitcher, and, you know, got that opportunity. I can tell you now, Charley Pride made a whole lot more money singing than he would have pitching. And so that twist of fate worked out pretty well. And Charley was one of the founding members of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. So he made countless appearances out here for us for various events. And he would come out and play in the Buck O'Neil Golf Classic.
That's what I was going to ask you about, was what were his impressions of the Negro League Museum when finally the statues and everything was put together? What were some of the things that he was talking about with the museum?
Oh, he was proud. He was proud, just like all of the players, because you got to remember, guys, they really didn't think that they had done anything special. Man, they were just playing baseball. They loved the game of baseball, and they had just played this game with all their heart, all their might, all their soul. But they didn't really think they had done anything special. And then we come along in 1990, 30 years ago, and say, yes, you all did do something special. The passion, the pride, the perseverance that you all demonstrated in the face of adversity changed this game, and you changed this country. And so, like, every single person that I've ever known, particularly those who have roots connected to the Negro Leagues, there was this groundswell of pride. And every time Charley Pride made an appearance at the museum, a guitar just happened to show up.
I would imagine it was the same story. And, Bob, you've been kind enough to share a lot of the images from your personal collection on Twitter about, and there is a young Bob Kendrick, if I'm not mistaken, singing backup to Charley Pride, or trying to do so.
The Temptations.
Hey, we understand that Charley used to give a clubhouse concert to the Rangers and did that for many, many years. And I would imagine, you know, as this got a little deeper, this was this year. You got kids now, effectively kids on that roster, some of whom might never have heard of Charley.
No, they had not heard of Charley, and they got to experience that. And that's what we got all the time, man. That's what I said. Every time he was around, a guitar just coincidentally was always in the same place. And so my good friend Rick Sutcliffe, in 2013, we're playing in the Buck O'Neil Golf Classic. And Rick just happens to have a guitar, and Charley's there at the awards banquet. And Rick decides he's going to get up and start strumming the guitar and singing for Charley, which was certainly not a good idea, but it was actually a great idea because Charley snatched the guitar from Rick, and then he took the guitar and went into an impromptu, about an hour-long concert at the awards banquet. I would venture to guess that every one of our patrons and golfers and friends will never forget that moment. But that's what we got with Charley every time we were around him. You know, he was just an absolute joy, and he never lost his love of baseball, no matter how much success he had had in country music, and he was a megastar. He never lost his love of the game of baseball. And it strikes me, guys, that he excelled in two areas that have essentially been two of the most important, I think, aspects of American society in terms of uniting us. Nothing has united us like sports and music. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why Charley has endeared himself to such a legion of fans worldwide, although not everyone knew that he had played in the Negro Leagues, but they knew of his love of the game of baseball.
Bob, we always love your insights, and we always appreciate your carving out a little bit of time for us on Hot Stove. Happy holidays to you and your family, and thanks for joining us today.
Hey, guys, anytime. It's great to see you both, and thank you for reflecting and remembering our friend, the late, great Charley Pride.